Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at another short Latin story. This one is concerning the death of Pompey the Great, and it comes again from H.J. Hardy's reader, his Latin reader for the lower forms in schools. If you've been following any of the videos I put from Hardy, you know that even though I've said that even though he calls them the lower forms, it's a little hard to unpack what he means by that. I would not call them beginner stories. I'd probably put them more at an intermediate level, just because it is mixing in some subjunctive. You'll see gerunds and gerundives in there too. These are things that, at least in my class, go more to that Latin 3 range, right? A little more intermediate to the higher level, depending on where we are. So just keep that in mind. If you're a teacher, I'd look through it and just kind of see where it fits for your kids. If you're a student and you're just looking for something to read outside of the curriculum, something different and fun, have fun with this. I think Hardy does a really good job. This comes from his introductory stories. So there's not as much of a sort of rhyme or reason to them, but I've mentioned in other videos, some of them are sort of stories, more like fables. They have sort of a moral or a theme to them. This is actually a historical one. So it's Hardy's take on a real historical event, which is the death of Pompey the Great. So what I've been doing in these is I'm going to read the story to you from start to finish in Latin, and then I'll pause the video and then go over the translation. What I would suggest that you do is listen to it. I would even suggest you read it to a classmate, right? Find someone you can read the story to as well. So you're practicing, you're speaking, and you're listening. Then you want to go through it and try to write down any problem areas you have. So any vocab you're not sure of, any grammar forms you're not sure of, write them all down and then reread the story, right? The read and reread method. So read it until you're able to go through the story and understand it without living in the dictionary or constantly looking up different types of grammar, right? Once you hit that point, you can feel confident that you're in a really good place. So let's start up now. Again, I'll start by reading it to you, and then we'll pause the video, and I'll walk you through a quick translation of it. So the story goes like this. You have nunquam ad hoc Romanae copiae in unum neque maiores, neque melioribus ducibus convenerant. Totum terrarum orbem faciles subacturae si contra barbaros ducerentur. Pugnatum tamen est ingenti contentione victusque ad postremum Pompeius, et castra eos direpta sunt. Ipse fugatus Alexandriam petit, ut a rege Aegypti, cui tutor a senatu datus fuerat propter juvenilem eius aetatem, acciperet auxilia, qui fortunam magis quam amicitiam secutus occidit Pompeium, caput eas et annulum Caesari misit. So again, we're going to pause the video here just so you can kind of hear it once. Not that my speaking or pronunciation is perfect, but still just to give you a chance to kind of hear the Latin. So now you want to go back and do it on your own, okay? But when you feel like you're in a good spot, you can continue on now. We'll kind of run through the translation. And if what you were able to read is pretty close to what I'm giving you now, it doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm not saying my translation is perfect, but as long as you're on the right track, you can feel pretty good that you're understanding what's happening here, okay? So the first one is nunquam, which you might have seen as numquam with an M, same exact thing, okay? So it's saying never before, right? Numquam ad hoc, something like never still or never to this point, I guess would be more literal, but never before, right? Had the Roman troops, the Romanae copiae, right? The Roman army, the Roman troops, convenerant, had they convened or kind of come together, right? As one, in unum. And it's saying that never before, right? And not greater, meaning in sort of greater numbers, nor melioribus ducibus, with better generals. Okay, so this line is actually something we've seen before. I think it comes from Eutropius too, uses similar phrasing. So it's talking about this massive fight between the Roman armies, and it's really referencing Julius Caesar versus Pompey Magnus in the Civil War. And if you're not sure what that is, look it up, but that's what he's referring to here. Right, and it says totum terrarum orbum. So this is a sort of a idiom for the world, right? The entire world. Literally, it means something like the entire orb of the earth, right? The orbem terrarum. It's a famous Roman or Latin phrase, but the entire world, right? Subacturae. It's saying they would subdue, right? So it's talking about this group of people saying they would subdue easily, facile, the whole orb of the earth, the entire earth, the totum terrarum orbem, if, right, contra barbaros ducerentur, if they were led, so ducerentur there is your passive form, so if they were led against barbarians, contra barbaros. So this is Hardy's way of echoing an old Roman sentiment with these civil wars of, if we just could have united to fight other people instead of ourselves, we would have taken over the world, right? Which they did in a lot of ways, but it's kind of lamenting the fact that there was this great civil war between Pompey and Caesar. And the only real sort of tricky part here is you have that future participle, right? Subactura is talking about the Romani copiae. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Then you go to the next part, right? And you have pugnatum tamen est. So here you have nevertheless, right? However, or nevertheless, tamen. Pugnatum est means it was fought, right? Meaning the battle was fought in gente contentione, with a huge struggle, you might say, right? A lot of effort, right? It's this massive kind of struggle of a battle, Pompey versus Caesar, right? And you have with Pompey, right? Pompeius, being defeated, victus, right? He was defeated, you might say. It's almost implied victus est. He was defeated at the postramum, at the end. And his camp, castra eos. So remember, castra is plural, but it really means like a camp, like a military camp. So his camp, direpta sunt, was plundered, right? So he was conquered. You have the victus there, right? From vico to conquer. And his camp was taken, right? His camp was plundered at the end of this battle. And this is a reference, if you want to look up the culture, the Battle of Pharsalus, right? This sort of last confrontation where you have Dyrrhachium right before it, followed by Pharsalus, where you have the battle between Pompey and Caesar. So that's what's being referenced here. And again, you can look that up if you're not sure of the history. Okay? Then we continue. You have ipse fugatus Alexandrium petit. So he himself, ipse, having fled, right, fugatus, he sought or looked for Alexandria, right? He sought refuge in Alexandria. Now, this is the famous city of Alexander the Great in Egypt, right? It's at the very mouth of the Nile River in Egypt, famous Macedonian Greek city planned by Alexander, and it becomes like one of the main cities anyway of ancient Egypt. It's particularly at the time, when the Romans are coming there with Caesar and Pompey. So he sought refuge, you might say, petit, in Alexandria, and he sought Alexandria so that he might acciperate, he might receive or accept help, auxilia, a rege Aegypti, right, Aegypti, from the king of Egypt. Okay, so he went there so that he might get help, right? He wanted help from the king of Egypt. And you have acciperate there as your imperfect subjunctive, right? So this ut clause showing the reason why he went there. And you have the side note, the relative clause in the middle of this ut clause. So it's so that he might accept help from the king of Egypt, whose tutor, right? Cui tutor, literally like for whom, the tutor, meaning the, sort of the mentor here. It doesn't mean academic. It almost means like someone standing in place of the king, like a regent might be kind of the word, or an advisor. Had been given, right? Datus fuerat, had been given by the Senate. Now, this doesn't mean the Roman Senate. This is talking about the Egyptians, right? They had given the young king, Ptolemy, one of the Ptolemies, I forget which one. They'd given sort of a regent on account of propter, right? Juvenilem eositatem, his young age, his youthful age, you might say, right? He is a Juvenus, he is a young man, so they give him an advisor, right? So he has this tutor there, this advisor helping him because he's very young, and now you enter Pompey, who shows up looking for help after this defeat at the hands of Caesar. Then you have qui fortuna magisquam amicitiam secutus occidit Pompeium caput eus et annulum Caesari mise. So who, and here it's probably talking about the king. I mean, I guess technically it could be the advisor too, or on account of the advisor, but you have who, following secutus, right? You have the participle there. So following fortune, fortunam, more than friendship. Magisquam is a pretty straightforward Latin phrase meaning literally more than. So following fortune more than friendship, he occidit Pompeium, he killed Pompey. And this is true, right? So the Egyptians kill Pompey the Great, thinking that, if Pompey just lost to Caesar and Caesar's coming, you don't want to be on the wrong side of it, right? So they kill him. Okay, so they kill him, and it's an interesting phrase. Hard to use here, following fortune more than friendship. It's not a bad way to put it. So his head, caput eus, meaning the head of Pompey, and his ring, annulum, he sent, or he gave, I guess sent is probably the best way to do it, sent to Caesar, Caesari of the dative there. So when Caesar shows up in Egypt, there's this famous scene where he shows up and they present him this gift and he's not sure what it is, and they open the basket and it's the head of Pompey the Great, right? The Egyptians think they're doing this great thing, and Caesar is, he might have been happy, I guess, technically the war is over. He's not pleased with the Egyptians, right, for doing this, because at the end of the day, Pompey is a Roman, okay? So this is a good intro into the death of Pompey. There's a lot of famous things being referenced here. This is sort of like a short and sweet introduction to it. So I'd encourage you that if you're not sure what's going on, look up Pompey the Great, right? Look up the battle with Caesar, the Civil War. It'll give you some background about how what happened right before he died. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'm happy to help you. But like I said, this could be a nice break from a traditional curriculum and give you something different to read. Okay, so the more you read and practice, the better off you're going to be. I always tell you that. But for this one, try to look up the grammar and the vocab in advance. It might be something you haven't seen before. So take a look at it. But if you can read through this and what you had is pretty close to what I just went through, you can feel pretty good that you're on the right track. Good luck with it.